And secondly, if you look into what's going on, like now in places like Nyanza, which traditionally are believed to be disenfranchised in a way, we have people who are 40 years old who've never held ID cards in this country. Now look at what's happening in South Nyanza and Kisumu. The lines of the people registering, particularly to vote, to get ID cards, then of course transition into being voters, is massive. We are going to see numbers that are not the same with the numbers that we've had traditionally from certain areas in the coming elections. So I do not believe that Mount Kenya alone as one region is going to have such another prominent role in determining who is our leader. Because again, that is the perception we've had in almost every presidential election. And one thing that as a country, if you're talking about the things we need to change, one of the things we have to change is putting too much importance of over-reliance in one area of the country. So I do not believe that Mount Kenya alone is what will deny President Ruto the 50+1%. If, and I repeat, because I've seen the Gen Zs themselves really organizing and pushing, though the turnout is still pretty low. If the Gen Zs can mobilize, really get out and register as voters, and actually turn up to vote, then that might be an impact. But if they come out and register to vote, then we see that they fall into the same trap of tribalism where you have a Gen Z who is taking the card, going to vote, but then still voting for somebody from their tribe and not for the ideology that they think the president does not align with. Then President Ruto, as things stand, because even given the manner in which the united opposition is not so united or organized as of now, I do not think that there is any factor at this particular point that would stop President Ruto from getting 50+1. Sad as it might sound.
Lazarus, if you look at the votes that President William Ruto got from Mount Kenya in 2022, and you look at just the election in Mbeere, one would argue that he has lost significant ground, because you look at, he was voted for almost to a man in Mount Kenya, you know, and you look at just what happened in Mbeere, and clearly half of one would say half of the votes have left him. It's gone, you know. And if that is replicated across the Mount Kenya region, does it portend a situation where there's a likely possibility that we might experience the very first runoff in 2027?
Okay, I think the by-elections that we've had now and how our elections are going to be in 2027, we can't compare. And this is because in 2027, you see, everybody will be out there. There'll be no deputy president to campaign for an aspirant in Mbeere North and have 2 weeks in Mbeere North. They'll have to traverse the entire country. But you're right to the extent that the mountain is slipping away from the president's hands, and I'm sure he knows that. And that is why, and maybe in the coming days we'll now see him come out and even thank the broad-based candidates for having won the various seats. And that is why it meant a lot for ODM to win in their strongholds and bar new formations that were there, let's say in Western and in Nyanza. Because we are seeing a scenario where it's like those regions have now agreed that they are going to be part of the broad-based government, and they have to deliver that particular vote. And you see, for ODM even to negotiate with President Ruto in 2027, they have to come out and show that, you know, we have the numbers. We've won in Coast. We have Western. We have Nyanza. Traditionally, they are support base, so that what the president will lose in Central, he will get in predominantly areas that were not voting for him. And then I'm also seeing a scenario where we are going to have a bit of disintegration or issues within the united opposition. Had DCP fielded a candidate in Mbeere North, you know, there are people who I believe in there would be of the opinion that they would have carried the day, because currently DCP is more of the face party in that particular region. So we hope to see, will they stick together, or because what they did in these particular by-elections is, you find in Malava they left it for DAP, were against the deputy party leader Malala, saying that they also have to field a candidate in Malava, and we have the DP fielding a candidate in Mbeere North. So, will they still maintain the united opposition candidate, or various parties? Now Jubilee has come out. Jubilee also is predominantly in Central. Will we see a scenario where they'll say that we let you go alone and you lost, now we also have a right to field our candidates? So we'll see in 2027, we are going to see a scenario where what the president will have lost in Central, he's going to regain it in new areas that traditionally were not voting for him. And what my panelists have said might be true. We are seeing large numbers of people now registering as voters and taking up IDs. We were told Luya are the second populars. We might see a scenario where there's a government-concerted effort to have these particular people issued with IDs, where we'll even have, let's say, the provincial, traditional provincial heads, open up new DCC and DCC offices so that it's accessible. Ordinarily, there was that clip of the governor of Natembea mocking the office of a chief. You see, in western side of this particular country, that is how those places look like. Yes, and maybe we might see as a scenario where now the Interior Ministry will now refurbish these particular offices and make services of acquisition of national IDs possible, so that you get ID and then you register the vote, which will translate to the president's vote in 2027.
You see, this is assuming that